Hi again. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite teas and using essential oils with this tea. Not only that, how to use essential oil to make the tea. One of the most popular teas in the world is Earl Grey tea. Earl Grey tea is a very strong tea. Uh, I've done a lot of reading on it after I've been buying it in the store all my life, but I discovered how easy it is to make and how easy it is to make variations of it. So I'm going to share all that with you. Anyway, Earl Grey tea is, first of all, named for Earl Charles Grey of England. He was the second Earl Charles Grey. He was the Prime Minister of England from 1830 to 1834. Now, there are several stories as to why this tea was named for him, and no one really knows 100%, but it has to do with a connection he had to someone in China or India. And so if you go on the internet and do a search, there's at least 3 stories that I remember reading about as to why this tea got named for him. No one really knows, but thanks to Earl Charles, we have this wonderful tea. Now, the tea is primarily 2 ingredients. Typically, traditionally, it's a black tea, a loose black tea, and bergamot. Bergamot is a citrus fruit that's not well known, I don't believe. Anyway, the fruit is a small citrus fruit that is grown in Italy primarily, and it's believed to be a cross between a sweet lime and a bitter orange. So it's got a very strong, unique flavor to it. And I do have my bergamot here, and just smelling it, you can get the hint of citrus, but it's not like when you have lemon or orange. It's a unique taste to itself. So anyway, what happens is the oil, bergamot oil, is mixed with black tea. Now, you could also take the rind of the bergamot fruit and mix that with black tea and still get that flavor. So there's 2 ways, because as I've spoken about before, the essential oils from citrus fruits are cold pressed from the rind. So using the rind of the fruit is the same as using the oil from the bottle, only the oil is more intense, it's more condensed, so you're going to get a much stronger flavoring this way. So we're going to go through the steps of how you can make your own Earl Grey tea, and then I'm going to go through some variations. So first of all, what I do is I have this jar. This is just an old jar that I cleaned out very well. I labeled it because I do make a lot of my own teas, and I may forget which jar holds which, and I could go and sniff it and recognize it, but it's a lot easier just to label it. So in this jar, there's the way I've read about online and then the way I do it. The way I read about online is you take the bergamot oil and you will add it to the jar, and then you coat the sides of the jar. I do it slightly different. As far as how much oil, this is a lot of personal preference. You can use anywhere from 5 to 20 drops of bergamot oil for 1 cup of loose black tea. 5 drops is going to give you a much lighter flavor. 20 drops is going to give you a more intense flavor. So I would suggest, if you're trying it for the first time, you may start with less and then work your way up till you find what works for you. And so I also believe if you end up making it too strong, you can always dilute it with a little more of the loose black tea. So that's how you start. You determine how many drops you're going to use. For me, I've played with it, and I usually end up with 13 drops. I like a mid-range strength. I do love strong tea, but because I add other things, I don't want the bergamot to be the overwhelming flavor. I want it to work with the other flavors. So that's why I do that. So what I do is I have my jar, and I have here 1 cup of loose black tea. So instead of adding the oil and coating the sides, I do it slightly different. I'm going to pour some of my tea in, as you can see. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of the oil, just a little different. Now, I have to keep track because I usually like 13. If I go over by 1 or 2, not a big deal. And again, if I'm short, I can always just add another drop to this. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 drops in there, and I'm going to start mixing it. I do this because in my mind, this is helping the oil distribute between the leaves, the tea leaves, better. So I do that. I am going to add some more of my black tea. I'm going to add another 4 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm up to 8. Again, I'm doing this. If I wanted to, I could even put the lid on and really give it a shake. So I can do that. And I don't know if you can see, some of the tea is actually sticking to the sides because of the oil. Now I'm going to add some more. And I'm up to 8, so I'm going to go 9, 10, 11. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to mix up some more here. Now I've got that, and I'm going to finish off adding my 1 cup of tea. I'm going to add 2 more drops of my oil. 1, 2. Now, all I need to do is let this sit for about 3 days. I can go longer if I want, it doesn't matter. But in 3 days, the leaves will have absorbed the bergamot well enough that I will be able to get a good blend of tea. So that is just plain old how you make a bergamot or Earl Grey tea. Now, you might not want to do that, or you might run out. There's ways to do a quick version. So, to make a quick version, what I do is I have this, I love this, it dispenses from the bottom. So this is my teapot that I use. You can see it's kind of beat up and worn. The lid actually snapped off. Eventually I will replace it, but it still works. So I will do this. I'll put a teaspoon. Now, everyone says a teaspoon makes 1 cup. I do a healthy teaspoon of my bergamot, or my black tea, or whatever tea I'm using. I can make green tea or white tea, but I'll put that in here. And I will heat up my water, add my water to the top, steep the tea for about 4 minutes. Then, the next step I do, here's my vintage teapot. I call it vintage because we're not old here. But anyway, I grew up with this teapot, and so it follows me everywhere I go. What I do here, if I'm out of bergamot or Earl Grey tea, if I need to make a quick pot of it, maybe this isn't ready, maybe I haven't even made any yet, what I'll do is while my black tea is steeping in here, I am going to put 1 drop of this into this teapot. All right, this holds 32 ounces. I don't put it directly in my cup because, like I said, this is a very strong oil. 1 drop of this, for me personally, flavors this whole pot to make an Earl Grey tea. So I'll add that, and then I set this on the counter and I let this dispense into here. And then I have my Earl Grey. One of the reasons I like that it dispenses from the bottom is it will then extract as much of that tea flavor as possible. Now, the reason I don't put the bergamot oil in here is this is plastic. Now, it may be a safe plastic, I don't know. But remember, citrus oils eat away at plastics, so you have to be very careful. So I just take that extra precaution. Now, when I put the bergamot tea, if I do put bergamot, or if Earl Grey, I keep messing that up. If I put this in here, there's so little of the oil, and it's been such a short time, I'm not overly concerned. But I don't want to put a whole drop in there and have it sit for 4 minutes. I just don't know over time what it would do. Anyway, that's 2 ways to make your own Earl Grey tea. All right, and as I said, if you're making your own, it can be black, it can be green tea. That's a slightly less intense flavor. Green tea is not as strong of taste as a black tea. You can even use white, red. You have your choice of teas for your base tea. In doing my research online, some people get fancier black teas, black tea that has rose petals or cornflowers, things like that. Or you could even, if you had dried rose petals, dried cornflowers, dried lavender leaves, you could do it and change things up. That is up to you. That's the beauty of this. You can vary it as much as you want. So anyway, now I've shown you how to make your tea. I'm going to let this sit for 3 days at least. I can let it sit longer. And then, my counter is so full of stuff. This is the Earl Grey jar I keep in my cabinet. This is straight Earl Grey tea that I have done. And so after 3 days, or when this is empty, I will take it from that jar and put it in here. This has already sat long enough, and I can smell it. I do use this. Now, if you don't use it a lot, that might be when you want to just add a drop to a pot. You want to try to use the tea up within 6 months. I've had tea a lot longer, but that's me, and whatever. So you do want to try to use it within 6 months, because after 6 months, tea will lose some of its potency with the flavor. But like I said, I've had tea on my shelf for a lot longer than 6 months, and I never have noticed a difference, but that's everything I've ever read about when you make your own teas. So anyway, this is my Earl Grey. I'm going to show you one of my favorite variations of Earl Grey. Okay, let me adjust. I have a split screen going on here with my notes. All right, one thing I absolutely love is Earl Grey vanilla tea. And again, just like making your own Earl Grey tea, there's different ways to make Earl Grey vanilla. All right, for me, my easiest way is I happen to make my own vanilla tea. I labeled it black vanilla because it is black tea. And so I make my own, and I may have already done a video showing how to make that, but I do use vanilla bean and pure vanilla extract to make this. And just like this sits for a while, this is my jar. As you see, I'm all out. That's on my to-do list. And this will sit for at least a week. That's how long, and it makes a nice strong vanilla tea. Anyway, I like mixing the two, but I don't make a real strong pot all the time. So what I've done is I have a jar of Earl Grey vanilla. All I've done there is I've taken an equal part of Earl Grey, equal part of vanilla, and I put them together. That way, when I'm making my tea, this has both flavors combined. So that's one way you can make Earl Grey vanilla. There's other ways too, and so I'm going to try to go over at least some of the other ways. So you can make your Earl Grey tea using either your tea or a drop in a teapot. To turn it into vanilla, one way you can do it is by taking a vanilla syrup and pumping it in. Okay? Another way is, and this is fancier, you take a fresh vanilla bean and steep it with the tea, or you grind it up into a fine powder and add it. It takes longer. I tend to go for quicker solutions. Or another favorite way is you take pure vanilla extract. Now this is extremely strong extract, so when you do that, you can see this is a quarter teaspoon. I have these which are smaller. They're labeled a pinch, a dash, and a smidge. Cute. But this is probably 1/6 of this spoon. You literally only want a little bit, otherwise the vanilla is overpowering. So to make your own Earl Grey vanilla, like I said, you could do the vanilla tea, vanilla extract, vanilla pump, or if you're like me and you have strange things in your pantry, I have vanilla sugar. Vanilla sugar is made similar to vanilla tea. It doesn't have the extract, it just has vanilla bean set in a jar of sugar, and again it sits for a minimum of 1 week, and then the sugar has the flavor of vanilla. If you add that to your tea, you're still going to get a vanilla taste to the Earl Grey. So I've gone through a lot there. This is going to be a long video today. I could have broken it up, but I'll get it all done. Another way you can vary your tea is with rose. So I have my rose oil. This is known as French Earl Grey. Okay, everyone has to put their own twist on it. Rose oil, if you're going to use it because it's not considered one that you normally would ingest, keep in mind it's extremely strong. It's very potent. It's also expensive, so this would be a rare thing. 1 drop of rose oil is literally more than enough to flavor this. That's how overwhelming a flavor this is. 1 drop to a cup is too much. 1 drop to the pot is almost too much. But if you wanted to try it, here's what I do. I have here my rose honey. This is a 1/4 cup of honey and 1 drop of rose. That's all it took for the 1/4 cup. And it's still kind of, it's still very strong. But I could take a little bit of this, which would then be less than 1 drop going into my tea, and I could use this to either flavor a cup if I only use a smidge, or I could use a little bit more to flavor the pot of honey. If you're going to try the French Earl Grey, if you're going to use rose, the only brand I would recommend you using is the Young Living. as I've talked about, I know the quality of the oils, and because this is not typically an oil you ingest, you don't want to go elsewhere. Now, another way you could do the French Earl Grey is if you had dried rose petals. And I don't mean open up a potpourri bag, if they even make that anymore, and grab any of those, because you don't know that process. But if you know that they're dried, or I think they're called edible petals because they're used to decorate cakes and things, you could use that and steep it with your tea. That would work. So there's a couple ways to do that. Now, another oil that you can use, let me move my things here. If you saw my counter, you'd see how my brain works. Anyway, you can make what is known as Lady Grey tea. That was actually my mom's favorite. She loved Earl Grey, but Lady Grey, it's a little bit milder flavor, and it's got a hint of lavender to it. So to make Lady Grey tea, again, you could use the Earl Grey. Okay, you might even want to dilute it down with another tea just to make it a less intense flavor. I don't know. That's personal preference. And you could take a drop of lavender oil. You may even use 2 or 3 drops because lavender is not as intense a flavor for a full pot. You may use 1 drop in a large mug of tea. It all depends on your personal preference. So you could do that. I don't add the lavender all the time, but if I want the lavender taste, this is good at night. I have here lavender honey. Again, I made it myself. It's a 1/4 cup of honey, and I've added, how many drops? Maybe up to 10 drops of lavender to it. So what you're getting when you use this honey, you can see I definitely use this honey a lot. You've got, for me, it's a good, strong honey, but with a hint of lavender. And when I put a little bit of that in my tea in the evening, if I'm using Earl Grey tea, it's a lighter flavor. It's a relaxing flavor because lavender helps relax. So that's a good, for me, it's a good end of the day tea. So you can make Lady Grey tea that way. Then the next tea I want to tell you about is, it's called Russian Earl Grey tea. Everybody had to get in on this thing, apparently. So to make Russian Earl Grey tea, you use some citrus. Now we already know this has citrus, but it bumps up that citrus flavor. And so, again, using Young Living oils, that's my preference. What you're going to do is you're going to take orange and lemongrass. Okay, so you get an idea. It's going to really be a powerful thing. Russia, you think stronger. All right, so you're going to use 1 to 2 drops of lemongrass, 1 to 2 drops of orange. I would suggest you play with it, and I would do those drops not to a cup, but to a pot, because you can always make it stronger, but if you do it to a cup and it's too strong, you're sort of stuck. Okay, so you can do that. By adding that citrus, you're just bumping up, you're pulling up the citrus flavor some with the black tea. So that is an Russian Earl Grey tea. And if you wanted for visual effects, instead of using orange, you could replace it with the orange bits. This is orange peel or some dried orange. It's a neat visual that I just, like I said, I try to keep things simple. Now, another way to do it is by adding, not for the Russian Earl Grey, but just to add flavor. You could add lemon. This is lemon peel. You could do that. We know lemon is great with tea, and lemon pairs well with the Earl Grey tea. So you could use a slice of lemon, you could use lemon peel, you could add some lemon. When I do it, I add 1 drop of this directly to my cup because lemon's not an overwhelming flavor. Or you could, again, add lemon honey. Now, I don't just have a plain lemon honey like this. My lemon honey is my lemon and thieves honey that I use every single day. So if I were to use that, I would get some thieves in with it. But I can always just do this. So those are variations of how to make Earl Grey tea. French Earl Grey, Lady Grey, Russian Grey, a couple other things thrown in there. Now, one more thing I want to share with you. I've got a bunch of recipes here, and maybe I'll post them at some point. But let's see, where did I lose? I've got some great ones here. I've lost it. Okay, luckily I know what it is. London Fog. To make London Fog tea, which I absolutely love, you use Earl Grey vanilla. So you're either going to take Earl Grey and add a vanilla flavoring, like a pump of vanilla or something, or you can take this, doesn't matter. You want the Earl Grey vanilla, and then you put in milk, either steamed milk or heat up the milk on the stove and froth it up. It is such an excellent latte, and it's so simple to make. Like I said, I like to keep things simple. Now, I do plan down the road to do a video showing some less simple variations of Earl Grey, but this is a very long video, I know, I'm looking at my time. I've gone over how to make Earl Grey tea. I've gone over the most popular variations, and you can come up with your own. One I haven't tried yet, but I'm going to, is adding cinnamon honey. So, like I said, you can do your own. And I shared with you my favorite Earl Grey latte, London Fog. Excellent. If you like Earl Grey, if you like lattes, you've got to try it. So anyway, I hope this has given you some ideas. Start experimenting in your kitchen. If you need to learn more about the oils, look at my previous videos, reach out to me. I would absolutely love to share more of my knowledge with you and try not to drone on. But anyway, I am going to stop right now, and I've got it in my mind that I may want some Earl Grey, London Fog. So have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.